So, good morning. This morning, I want to share some thoughts on one of my favorite metaphors. And the metaphor is we never step in the same river twice. And I've heard this spoken of for years in Buddhist settings, but it turns out that it's actually attributed to an ancient Greek Stoic philosopher, Heraclitus, and then it got picked up along the way by Buddhist teachers. And it's a profound metaphor because it really talks about the impermanent and ever-changing nature of existence. And while it originated with the Greek Stoics, the sentiment of it really resonates, I think, deeply with Buddhist teachings, particularly the concepts that we often talk about of impermanence and the interconnected flow of everything. So I want to explore today sort of the spiritual and philosophical implications of the quote and look at it through a Buddhist lens, through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, which I think really illuminates its deeper meaning. At the heart of Heraclitus's observation is this recognition that life is an ongoing process of flux, always in flux. In the case of the river, the water flows ceaselessly. The river is never the same from moment to moment to moment. And similarly, when we step into the river, the person stepping into the river is also changing constantly, internally and externally. And this really parallels our teaching that we so often talk about of impermanence. This idea that all conditioned phenomena, in other words, pretty much everything, are transient and subject to change. From the smallest particle in the cosmos, nothing remains static. Even giant boulders over millions of years will erode. When we step into the river, the water beneath our feet is constantly changing. And by the time we lift our foot out of the river has already transformed. Likewise, as we live each moment, we are not the same as we were just a moment ago. And this is also the teaching of not self. Our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical states are in continuous flux. And when we really delve into this teaching, this understanding, it can help us cultivate a deep sense of humility in the face of life's impermanence. It reminds us not to cling to this illusion of solidity or this illusion of permanence, because doing that only is going to end in suffering, guaranteed. And in Buddhist teaching, this idea of a fixed, unchanging self is one of the real sources of suffering, really perpetuates suffering. Just as the river is not a single unchanging entity, but a collection of ever-moving waters, so too are ourselves not a permanent, independent being or thing. Rather, we are a dynamic interplay of physical, mental, and emotional processes, constantly changing, constantly evolving with each moment. But we get really locked in and attached to this idea of permanence. Whether we're clinging to some identity that we've created, whether we're clinging to relationships and wanting them to be permanent, possessions, circumstances, the list goes on and on. We resist change. We don't like it, even though it's the natural state of things. And the river metaphor reminds us that clinging what is inherently impermanent is like trying to hold on to water. You just can't do it. No matter how tightly we try to grasp, it's going to slip through our fingers. And the beauty of this teaching, the beauty of this truth is that it can really lead to liberation, because it helps us, directs us to let go of attachment, to let go of clinging and embrace the constant flow of life. Therein lies the essence of this. The teaching embedded in we never step in the same river twice also highlights the unique and fleeting nature of each moment. And we use our mindfulness practice to cultivate awareness of this and to cultivate awareness of the present moment. When we fully experience the here and now, we are able to appreciate the beauty and richness of life. We're not bogged down and worrying about everything in the future. We're not reliving all our regrets. We can open to all the beauty and the awe that's in the world and experience the awe from what's in the world. The river in a sense becomes a metaphor for time, because each moment is like a drop of water flowing forward in the river. So to live mindfully is to recognize that every moment is unrepeatable. It's not going to happen again. And it is precious, every moment. We don't want to squander any moment. Even if we revisit the same physical place or encounter the same people, the circumstances and the inner reality of those experiences are always different. They're always going to be changing. The river teaches us to honor the impermanence of life by living fully and authentically as best we can in each moment. Now, another layer of Heraclitus' quote aligns with the Buddhist teaching of interdependence, because the river is not an isolated entity. It exists because of countless factors: rainfall, the terrain through which it flows, the Earth's gravitational pull, all factors that I couldn't even think of. But the rainfall, the terrain it flows through, all of these things arise in dependence on causes and conditions, just like everything else in life. This understanding helps us dissolve the illusion of separateness, and it reveals the interconnected web of our existence, of the existence of everything. When we step into the river, we too become part of the story. The ripples we create merge with the currents, and for a brief moment are inseparable from the river's flow. Think about that. We also become part of what impacts the river when we step in it, because the water goes around us. And this reflects the Buddhist insight that we are not separate from the world around us. We're always impacting it, and it is always impacting us. Our actions, our thoughts, our intentions are like ripples in the vast river of existence, influencing and being influenced by everything else. We can't separate that. And recognizing this interconnectedness, it can help inspire compassion and a sense of responsibility for how we move through the world. We appreciate the interdependence. We want to handle it with kindness, with carefulness. There's a sense of responsibility there that we embrace when we see this interdependence. Now, ultimately, the lesson of the river is one of letting go. And letting go, as you know, when we talk about it, doesn't mean apathy, it doesn't mean detachment, it doesn't mean withdrawal, but it means a gentle release of our grasp on what we cannot hold. When we accept that the river is always changing, we can find in that metaphor peace in the flowing with it instead of resisting it. This is the essence of equanimity. A balanced state of mind that allows us to navigate life's challenges and changes with grace and wisdom. Letting go means embracing uncertainty, and we resist it. We talk about all the time how we resist it. But just as we cannot predict the course of the river, we cannot control the unfolding of life. And I know we resist that reality, but by relinquishing our attachment to outcomes, we create space for spontaneity, for awe, for growth, for discovery. Because the river reminds us that life is a journey, it is not a destination. And the true freedom that we seek on this path lies in surrendering to the flow. We never step in the same river twice is a profound reminder of the impermanence and interconnectedness of all things. It's rooted in the wisdom of both the ancient Stoics and the Buddhist teachings, and it invites us to reflect on the transient nature of existence, the illusion of a fixed self, and the preciousness of each moment. By embracing this flow of life with our mindfulness, with compassion, with equanimity, we get better at navigating the ever changing currents with wisdom and inner peace. Because in the end, the river is not something to be conquered or controlled. It is a teacher to be listened to be paid attention to. It whispers in our ear the truth of impermanence and the beauty of change. It encourages us to step into its waters with an open heart, knowing that we too are part of this endless flow. So that is some thoughts on never stepping in the same river twice.